Good morning and welcome to the final session of the Pimento Business Development Club. As I said, I apologize. I'm literally just getting my voice back. It's going to be an interesting one. So I apologize from my perspective. But if you don't already know me, I am Paddy Woods. I'm director of Pimento Fuse, which is a new business consultancy that is built to solve and energize independent agencies' new business and marketing growth. And I bring in experts along the way to help support you in that journey. If you haven't been on previous calls, please do use the chat box to ask questions, and we'll look to get you into the call once the panel discussion's over. So today's session is all about building the right commercial team structure that will deliver success. We hear of many occasions where an agency will hire a new business person or an agency, but it doesn't work out as they might actually need and actually want. So they get the wrong person, or they have unrealistic expectations or targets, and the relationship falls down. So this is really about looking at making sure you structure yourself in the right way that's going to give you the ultimate success. Today's session, I'm joined by a fantastic team. We've got Guy Littlejohn from, I would call you Facets, but I can't remember your new name. But you can do that in a second. We've got Adam Graham from Grey Matters, and we've got Russell White from FutureWork. Now, I'm going to let them do a quick introduction to them by themselves, because that's probably better than I can do right now. And then we'll get started with the panel. So, Guy, do you want to start?
Yeah, Guy Littlejohn, ex-Facets, now Function. We rebranded in the last couple of months. The original business was a commercial consultancy where we embed part-time sales and marketing directors into agencies' business. And we've had that for 4.5 years. We've launched a new service which combines business development or business development through a variety of different events that we host, 3-day, 1-day, and half-day. And there is a mind and body focus. So we have health and wellness and fitness activities running through those events. So a little bit of a change from the traditional beer and pizza networking. Over to Adam.
Thanks, Guy. Yeah, I run Grey Matters. So we are a business development consultancy for agencies. We basically build in-house new business machines, and we implement fractional sales and marketing teams to help do that. And we believe that you shouldn't outsource your new business function. So our job is to help you get to that point where you're sustainable to do that. And then as part of that offering, we have BD Matters, which is more of our training and development platform where we deliver masterclasses and various different sessions to help guide the agency owners on their journey for growth.
Hi, I'm Russell White. I am a director of FutureWork, and we are an executive recruitment consultancy working at mid to senior management levels, having done a lot of work in identifying and placing new business development people for agencies and building sales teams for client-side companies.
Brilliant. Thank you all. So today it's going to be about 30-minute session of Q&A with the panel, and then we're going to bring the audience in. So please ask questions in the chat as we go, and I'll look to get you in later. So Adam, I'm going to start with you. What are the common mistakes made by agencies in building their sales and commercial teams, and so where do they go wrong?
Yeah, I was making some notes on this, and I had to stop when I got to about 25 bullet points. So I won't list all of them. I'll try and wrap them into the key ones. I think there's a big assumption that because you run a business and you've sold some stuff, and maybe what got you here today won't get you where you need to go tomorrow. And actually, running a commercial team is quite different from what you might have been successful when it was you selling, being at the heartbeat of that. I think what we see and work with a lot of businesses on is how you move from being kind of founder-led sales to how do you deliver more sustainable sales, right? How do you bring in a team that does that in your vision in the way that doesn't rely on you, your network, and you having to do everything. So I suppose there's that misconception of like, it's in your head, and what you've done isn't necessarily how it needs to go forward. And I think a lot of that is around building foundational elements that they need to succeed. They possibly haven't, done enough soul searching in terms of their positioning, where they want their business to go, what their sort of vision is for the future. And then, there's all kind of mistakes from like outsourcing to a third party who doesn't tell you any of this because they just want to take your money and they don't want to deal with the hard conversations, which are things around your positioning, your vision, the difficult conversation, which are the real root of your sales problems. And then there's hiring issues, which I'm sure Russell will touch upon later. So hiring senior BD people who don't want to do cold outreach, hiring junior people that can't develop a strategy or challenge you on your positioning, or hiring marketing people who aren't salespeople and expecting them to generate leads. Just three very basic expectations and mistakes we see. And then just lastly from me, expectations of how long it takes to build a new business machine is completely off, we see. The lack of support the rest of the agency would give those individuals, leaving it down to sort of one or two people to carry the heavy burden of it, thinking that it never stops evolving and it's constantly having to change, or that your positioning's sorted and you never have to evolve that. And then lastly, thinking that you don't need a CRM system from day one of your business. So yeah, lots of mistakes. As I said, I could go on all day, but they're kind of some of the core things we see all the time from agency owners.
Great. Russell, Guy, do you have anything to add as well?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting what Adam talks about, and it probably leads into the points that I was going to make, which is, when you're hiring, before you actually bring someone on board to do it, it's really important to have defined clear objectives as to what you are expecting your BD person to actually do, and what are the KPIs, and Adam rightly says, there is so much expectation that you bring someone in and then within 5 minutes they've sort of won £1 million piece of business or whatever. It doesn't happen because usually the processes that already exist within an agency or a business are just not fit for purpose. And a lot of times, particularly when you're hiring, a business development director, they come in and they see they haven't got HubSpot or Salesforce or anything like that. There's no cohesive marketing strategy or content strategy, or the website doesn't necessarily align with the proposition of the agency. And they've often got to sort all that out, and then the CEO or the owner starts moaning about the fact that where's my £1 million that you promised in the first week. And I've seen that with people I've placed over a number of years, obviously, but it's something that as I say, just mirroring what Adam's just said, there's unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, and I would potentially be repeating a lot of what Adam said and what Russell has said, but not having a commercial strategy, not having the right sales and marketing assets when businesses come out or when a team member comes in. Adam mentioned about the rest of the business not supporting the salesperson. We talk about hunting in packs from a commercial strategy point of view, where salespeople are often left to be the lone wolf and hold all the accountability. One of Adam's other points about founders feeling that the salesperson can't do it as they did it, and maybe some help to some people listening if they are looking to hire a salesperson into their business, could be that one strategy that I adopted when I was PAYE was I always went in and told the founder's story. So as part of the sales process, I painted the picture of why the business was where it was. So they can almost sell in your guise. They're just talking for you. They're still telling the same story. And that was always very successful for me. And then bringing in the right subject matter expert at the right time to help me move that pipeline from left to right in that CRM that Adam says you need as well. But agree with all the guys' points.
Brilliant. And Guy, just adding on to that, it's like you often see how do agencies normally approach it? Because you often see sort of, actually Russell will come onto this, must have a black book
Yeah.
in when they're sort of recruiting for someone. What's your views in that sort of approach, and how they normally approach that sales structure at the moment?
So typically when we start working with an agency, they are founder-led sales. So they've got to where they are through word of mouth or referral. And they want to be more proactive in an inbound and an outbound strategy. And I think what they might have done previously, and hopefully this answers your question, is that they might have hired 2 or 3 salespeople, they might have hired some marketeers, they might have hired a traditional sort of lead gen agency, and for whatever reason, those things haven't worked. And typically, I think to Adam's point as well, is that there is no commercial strategy, and actually the sales and marketing assets aren't up to scratch. So the business, quite often, from a positioning point of view, doesn't actually say it does what it does to its prospects. So it's quite jumbled depending on where the company has been, but the sales structure is normally from I suppose a more granular level, is that the founder is using his network or the business's network to grow the company, and relying on those relationships to have it grow. And if an inbound lead comes in that they would maybe class as being cold, there's a very, in my opinion, archaic structure to how they then engage with that business, which is quite typical of agency, isn't it? A business comes in, they email with a bit of a, can you answer these questions? There's not really a personal touch. Nobody's getting on the phone and building those relationships. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
No, it doesn't. I think it's going back to sort of some of the other conversations, which was around often you're sort of with founder led, they're often going for any business that comes in,
Yeah.
and they don't actually know what is their niche, what is their real audience, who is the right person to actually right client fit for them, therefore they end up being a generalist and master of nothing, and so when you go in, it's really hard for that new business person to try and get back into what is it we really stand for, who are we really good for, and it takes a lot of time to get that right.
And I think it also closes doors. If you have we work with everybody, it closes doors to other parts of your commercial strategy, like partnerships, for example. But if you are a Shopify agency that deals with businesses between 2 and 10 million, and you build any projects between 30 grand and 60 grand, everything outside of that is open to a partnership network, of which then referrals can come both sides of the fence, So defining that ideal customer. I'm not a massive fan of niching. I think there needs to be caveats to that, but I think defining that customer, who that is key for the wider commercial strategy.
Brilliant. And Russell, in terms of that sort of your approach and how you go about helping agencies in that sort of finding the right structure and experience, how do you go about helping your clients in that recruitment process?
A lot of it for us in any event is about really getting under the skin of the culture and personality of the business, and really understanding, really talking to often the owner or the CEO, and seeing what motivates him or her, is driving their ambition, understanding kind of what their growth, what growth they are looking to achieve with the BD person. Equally looking at what structure and what they're doing at the moment, and sometimes asking the hard questions. For instance, there is they often have their own account handling teams, and it's about what are your account handlers doing to generate more business from your existing clients. And I think that when you ask those questions to yes, a leader, one of the leadership teams, or the CEO, or whoever, they look at you dare I say, it's kind of blankly, and they kind of think, well, what do you mean? I said, well, the best people to get business from are from your own clients, ultimately. Um, and your people should be asking the question all the time, and it's sort of sparks something, something in them, in their mind. But focusing very much on the individual, what do we look for in someone? It's dare I say it, there is a type for business, for a BD person. Usually, very outgoing, confident, easy to talk to, very engaging. And what we try and do is measure their sort of previous success. But what's most important is why they are looking to leave where they're working currently. Is it because they are failing, or is it because of management issues within their existing employer? And if you can sort of, and I often drill into that, so tell me why. What are the reasons? What are your motivations? Sometimes because they're moving from one part of the country to the other. Something as simple as that. But at the end of the day, I think that is absolutely key. Alongside making sure that you've got the culture fit as well. And it really is sort of building. You build a picture in your mind. Well, I build a picture in my mind as to what this role is going to entail, what resources they currently exist within the business, and if they don't exist necessarily, which you've established from the CEO. Can the individual that you're interviewing or considering, have they got the capability to actually build those resources?
Brilliant, thank you. And so, Guy, just building on that, so what experiences? Because we touched on earlier, you could hire someone who's junior, you could hire someone who's too senior, doesn't want to do this. There's junior one who needs so much more direction. How do you go about making sure you got the right experience when you're recruiting?
It might be I think it's quite often it's got to be a budget consideration, unfortunately, hasn't it, for most of the agencies. Let's just be straight. Most companies have a certain budget criteria that they need to sit within. And from there you've got your experience level. In an ideal world, would you want to work with somebody that had the experience, like Russell was saying before, to create that commercial strategy, like Adam was saying, to fix that positioning or nail that positioning down, and then have somebody come in and do a bit of the do with a playbook that everybody believed would work really well. You've got to. It's like most things in life, you've got to sacrifice something, and I think with budget comes a level of experience. I personally would, and when we've looked for hires at all different levels before, the juniors have been about personality and culture fit, desire, appetite, wanting to learn, wanting to get more into the world of digital marketing, creative and tech. And the experienced people have, again, there's a lot of personality of how they communicate. Can they guide clients through the process that we want them to guide the clients through? But then can they execute a commercial strategy? Can they bring a team in to help build sales and marketing assets? Can they generate their own pipeline? That was a really important thing, not just networks and black books. I think they're important, but people don't necessarily do help their mates out anymore. I think marketing directors, which most agencies are targeted towards, aren't they? Marketing directors are not there now to be swooned over a few glasses of wine in Mayfair. They've got to be accountable to absolutely every bit of budget that they spend. So that network piece is, in my opinion, and Russell may have a different opinion on this, is neither here or there, really. They might get something out of it, but if you're hiring somebody senior and they're coming in saying, I've got all these connections and things, there's certainly no data to suggest that they're going to close your £1 million business in the first week because of those connections. So it's how are they looking at generating pipeline? Are they looking at it multi-channel? So again, we talk about hunting and packs. We talk about spreading bets across pipeline generation channels, of which there are about 8 or 9 really simple ones that agencies can use. But just going back to that budget piece, and in my opinion, and hopefully this doesn't jump too far ahead. I remember some of the questions coming, but if you can, for that budget of, let's call it 30 to 45K, something like that, you really want, if you can, it might be a bit hen's teeth, but you want to find a marketer that can close or a salesperson that's creative. And that, in my opinion, is the future of an agency salesperson. Is actually, they're a commercial person. They can build their own authority. They can build their own personal brand. They can write content that provides air cover to the sales process. They're quite creative. They can design their own decks, all these types of things. I think if you have a siloed salesperson that is, say, an SDR type personality, I don't think that's enough. I think you need somebody with wider skill sets than that.
I think so. I agree. And I think a lot of the role is puppeteering, and actually it's managing all the strings in the agency as well. So that actually your content, because I remember this from one of my old agencies having this argument, which is I'm not the expert, but I'm the one that can share your expertise and make your voice shine. But it's not me that's got to write that content, because that's not what my capability is. I'm there to make it better. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the time that I've seen this, and agencies hire someone thinking they can do it all, and actually it's they don't really investigate what they're looking for, why they're looking for it, and actually what is that role going to be.
And also it's what you've got in the agency to start off with, right? Because I think if you know what a good sales strategy looks like and the components of that, you can also then determine who in your existing team can deliver some of those tasks. The problem often is that those skills aren't identified, or they're not linked together. So somebody is just over there posting on social because they're quite good at social media. It's got nothing to do with the new business strategy and the growth of the business and all the stuff we've been talking about. But that person could still be used, but their focus could be aligned in a much more strategic way. So I often think we're not clear on what we're looking for, because we don't know what good sales practice looks like. And actually, I've been into businesses where, just as a mentor, I've gone, you don't need to hire anybody. And they would have thought, oh, we need to go out and hire someone at 50K. You don't. You've actually got all the people there. It's just nobody knows how to coordinate that team and lead them in the right way. And unless you have that leadership and that direction, you're going to struggle to hire anybody, really. And it goes back to the first thing we talked about, because you've never run a commercial team. So I think it's just in terms of the individuals, and every agency is different, because everyone's going to have different strengths and skills and people that could contribute in some way.
I agree. And I think it's one of the jobs, and actually we'll come on to in a minute, which is finding actually what is going on in the agency when you get in there is really hard. And if you've got marketing going off and doing something, you got other people going off and speaking at events, but no one knows about, and trying to, as I say, it's that you're the puppet master, really, in terms of trying to understand and get to the grips with what's going on.
And I think, do you mind if we work with some businesses and have done the last 12 months who have hired, let's call it junior salespeople. And 3 out of those 4 junior salespeople, of which, similar to what Adam said, we've then come in and given them a proper plan and a structure of which to follow. And they are very open and honest with me, as almost like a mentor to them, or a part-time sales director, is that it is not what they expected. So I wonder whether there's a piece that actually, I think we talked about this a little bit offline, is that salespeople should be asking in the interview different questions to what they are asking, or founders and directors of agencies should be a little bit more honest, and maybe their eyes wide shut about where they are as a business. We don't have a commercial strategy. We haven't done this before, so I think a lot of junior salespeople with maybe 2 or 3 years experience who haven't got the confidence or the skill set to ask those questions in the interview are ultimately really disappointed when they come in. and they know that they've got a really hard job on, but they actually don't have the skill set to do the commercial strategy or this. You see, so it is maybe just a point to raise.
I think Adam and I have also talked about this as well, which is there's no sales training.
No.
So it's all just you're winging it, and it's sometimes it's potluck, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
I think Adam, that sort of brings into the next question, which is you're joining. What are those biggest challenges you face, and your experience, and so going through lots of different sort of agencies and those roles would really come into usefulness in terms of trying to get people to understand what are the challenges a new business person faces as they join a new agency.
Yeah, well, I think I'll segue into that. I'll start by just talking about the biggest elephant in the room, right? Which are two things. One is the ambition of the founder. Is this a lifestyle business, or is this something you're looking to sell, right? Most agency owners can't answer that question. And I think it sort of sets the tone for everything, right? Where you want to go. Because if you hire a salesperson, chances are they're quite ambitious and they want to grow and they want to bring in new leads. And a lifestyle business and a progressive kind of salesperson, that can sometimes hit heads. Yeah, Russell was talking about cultural fits and things like that, the right people. So I think that's an interesting one about how ambitious you are as a business and where you're taking it. Because a lifestyle business, you just you'll fall back to defaults. You're kind of responsible, be like, well, we just want to win enough business to stay afloat. It's very difficult. You're either going forwards or backwards normally in business, right? You can't sort of tread water, and salespeople certainly don't want to tread water. You also, the other elephant in the room is people's relationship with sales, right? And I did a talk recently on this whole piece, which is about, in the UK, we have a massive issue with sales, right? There is a complete snobbery around the word sales. We don't like to do sales. We don't like to admit we're salespeople. We don't like to admit that marketing is just another word for sales, right? And there is no training and there is no teaching for sales. No university teaches sales. There is no accreditation for sales. It's not an official accredited role. But marketing and everything else is. Sales normally sits as a module. And you can look and research this. That is the biggest issue in this country and this economy, with their people's relationship with selling, right? So we just have to look at those two massive elephants in the room and get your head around that and work out where you sit with that. But on the biggest challenges a new business person faces, I think there are things around, a founder who doesn't support that person in the way they need to be. We've talked about unrealistic expectations and not really realizing how long it takes to build a new business machine. I would be measuring that in a year at least, maybe 18 months realistically. Most new business agencies are fired within 3 to 6 months, and most new business people are fired within 6 months. It's nonsense, certainly in this market. It's way, way harder. So you need to be thinking in years. A team who, like a wider agency team, who doesn't think sales is their responsibility, or doesn't understand what that new business person does. So, team is sitting there, well, I'm not in sales. That's not my job. Oh, we'll hire a salesperson. That's their job, right? Nonsense. Sales, new business is a culture. It's not a job title. It's a way an agency operates. The salesperson's job is to help that culture and that operations to grow, certainly, and be the driving force for it. But this whole understanding of like, no, that's their responsibility, not mine, is where it falls down. We see weak positionings or websites that are unable to convert, or a new business team or people that are unable to convert new business meetings or pitches. So great, we're generating loads of leads, and we do this for clients. We generate agencies loads of leads. We put them in the room with clients. They don't convert. So we sometimes feel like we're working with the wrong people. The salespeople are working with the wrong agencies sometimes, not the other way around. It's like the problem's not them. It's worth looking at. And then you see, poor case studies, lack of marketing support, no historical data to build on because no CRM or capturing of that's continued. And it's just, that new business person, their challenge is to sort of win that agency over and get them to fall in line with their processes. The new business person, in my mind, should basically be in charge, right? They're the cog behind the wheel, pulling everything together and driving that machine forward. But often they're underappreciated for why they're brought in, and they're given sort of admin tasks because there's a lack of respect for sales. and they're sort of diminished their role and not given that empowerment to be successful. And so that, yeah, biggest challenges we see.
It's so funny. I agree with everything. It's like it is
Right.
that the commercial person they need to be running that business, supporting, leading, helping the founder do what they want to do, but also just making sure that actually the agency is fully behind it. But it just takes time when it's been sold in as you're just doing sales and that's it. And as channels are getting harder and harder and harder to cut across with clients, it's one of the toughest jobs. You get no appreciation. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. No appreciation whatsoever. If you lose, it's your fault. If you win, it's the agency's win, not your actual work. Anyone else wants to add in about the sort of other challenges? Russell, from your perspective, any feedback you hear as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting what Adam said. Adam talked about there is no sort of formal training. You can do a degree in marketing, accountancy, analytics, but you can't do a degree in sales effectively at universities. And I think that I can 100%. I had this conversation, fun enough, last week with someone. And it's just one of those disciplines that, as Adam says, you people just fall into sales as opposed to I'm going to be a salesperson, and they rely on the training that they get is from people who have done it before. So in some instances, clearly not all, uh, people learn the mistakes that just get sort of replicated continually throughout the sales process, in essence. So I think I absolutely that really resonated, Adam, what you just said about sales. I think also equally, the the thought that my thinking has always been the best NBD person is the owner ultimately. And for instance, I'm working with an agency at the moment. Where the leads are being generated, but the person that goes and does all the sort of the meet and greet and sort of the schmoozing of the client is the owner ultimately, because he replicates, it's his business, and he's ultimately responsible for its success. And equally, what Guy said about how you get an MBD person to sort of talk about the vision of of the owner. That is a very interesting. I think that's, yeah. I can see that working. The way I see it, just broadening the point out a little bit, is that, yeah, as Adam said, the channels are becoming much harder to sort of I penetrate it. I mean, obviously, in my world, in recruitment, it's the same in agencies. You try and reach out to people all the time, new clients, and sort of 8 times out of 10 you're ignored, which I suspect is the case with a lot of new business where you haven't got a relationship. But one thing I've learnt is that if you sort of lead with insight as opposed to, hello, I'm Future Work and I'm a great recruiter sort of thing, but you actually lead with, this I think will be of value to you. Would you like to have a conversation about it? You find that you get slightly better engagement levels, but you do all the other stuff as well, obviously.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's I'm working with an agency, and actually a lot of I say 60% of the leads are coming from the owner. We've basically stopped him having any general responsibility in the agency. So he's stepping away and doing more of the going and building the networks, building the relationships, and we're managing everything as a senior team. It's working really well. It just means we're getting steady leads that we can then nurture and build into sort of opportunities to pitch to. Russell, coming back to you, so last couple of questions. So what are the emerging trends that we see going to be impacting commercial teams, the structures, etc.? So coming in down the line.
I think that clearly automation is going to play a major role in aiding the business development process. And by automation, I mean generative AI. Some of the tools like HubSpot AI and Salesforce, they're now creating uh, sort of adding on elements that makes life easier. So, for instance, if you're, let's say, you're reaching out to someone uh, that you've identified. You send an email, and then you want to do follow-up emails. And I think that I read somewhere that it can take up to 7 or 8 emails before you actually start to get some level of engagement, even if it's telling you to go away, sort of thing. Leave me alone. It does take a lot of time, and automation can actually help you with that. Clearly, LinkedIn is your friend. There are tools like Sales Navigator that you can utilize to identify prospects. Equally, Navigator provides you, if you sort of dig into it and dig deeply, you can find insights into your target audience, or the targets that you're going for. Uh, I don't necessarily recommend using LinkedIn messaging to reach out to these people. So you may use something like Rocket Reach or one of the other sort of email the tools where they actually can find the email of that person from a LinkedIn URL, for instance. And again, you start to build a relationship. And if you're sort of taking the insight-led approach, or you're taking a I guess a more sort of like, I saw that you've just got, $30 million from Crunchbase or whatever to invest. Have you thought about advertising or your marketing? And this is what we do. And tying it all in, there are ways of doing it. And then, you'd probably tie it in with sending out a LinkedIn connection request, because most people, I think it's something like 70% of people will accept a LinkedIn connection request, even though they might not necessarily know that person. So it's a combination of all those different all those different factors. But equally, as I said earlier, it's about bringing other people within the agency to drive that BD. It's as I think Adam and Guy have said, it's not the person, it's not you doing it in isolation. You're doing it with everybody else. It's a team effort ultimately.
Brilliant. I'm going to start bringing. I've got one more question, but I'm going to ask that at the end. But I'm going to start bringing people into the conversation. So, Susie Middlehurst, do you want to just unmute yourself, if that's okay?
Hi. Yes.
Hi there.
Hello. Sorry, I've been wrangling with a new puppy, so I thought I'd better stay off video and quiet for a little while. Yes. I was just looking at I find that a lot of places don't really have a set strategy for going to market. And something that I've been talking to a few people about is the possibility of looking at a go-to-market strategist. Sometimes this is maybe called a product strategist, but depending if you're more like tech-centric, product can get a little bit messy in terms of terminology. So just wondered on the panel's thoughts on that, really. I kind of feel like it should be born out of the senior leadership team, kind of a mixture of business development as well as marketing, and possibly some of the client partners as well, just because they are at the kind of the nitty-gritty end of actually hearing what clients are needing and wanting. So yeah, just any thoughts on that as a individual position rather than a joint effort?
Adam, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start because obviously I sorry, I jumped the gun and answered it a bit in the chat there.
I saw.
Yeah, because I was obviously trying to get my head around like what is a go-to-market strategist, and I suppose there's a big open unknown entity there of like, well, what is that? Who is that person, and what's their background? Where do they come from? And I think in my experience, I've seen a lot of businesses really struggle with a go-to-market plan because it all comes down to sort of execution. And I think there's sometimes it's hard to say, like, because you've done it for other clients or other people, I don't think they necessarily correlates to you. So because someone's done a go-to-market plan for like a SaaS product over there, or because you've got a great client services director and they do a great job on one of your clients, I don't think it necessarily qualifies them on developing a good go-to-market plan. I've seen that fall down quite a lot. And also, there's with a go-to-market plan, there's an element of it where you have to be really realistic around budgets, resources, and time. And often I hear people talk about things they want to do. They chuck out ideas and let's do a podcast, let's do an event, or we should do more of this, we should talk at more of that. And the problem is that what normally happens is all of those things are executed really badly and not linked up. So they go to an event, but then they're like, oh, but that didn't work, that was rubbish. Or they do an event and they go, well, that was rubbish, didn't work. But it's because things like data capture didn't work, that had been done properly, nurturing wasn't done properly, the expectations were unrealistic, and they didn't realize this was just one part of a wider campaign. So it's really tricky, that go-to-market bit, because I don't think there's a lot of people necessarily qualified, even like SLTs, to do it, if I'm honest. And often when you've got a very vague strategy or positioning, i.e. we work with a broad range of businesses and we have a broad range of services, giving that to anyone is almost an impossible task. And that's why, I do like, I know Guy talks, I do like niching in some way. And I do think defining an audience is a really, really important thing to do, because the sharper your knife, the deeper you cut. And if you give somebody a really broad strategy and say, oh, well, look, anyone will do, then, they might as well, their go-to-market plan might as well just be scrolling through Eventbrite and clicking on events for you. But if you say, look, this is our audience, this is really well defined, and you niche down into something, your go-to-market strategy almost writes itself. The content works, the pain points, the locations you should turn up in, all that sort of stuff links in really nicely. Yeah. So I don't know if I fully answered the question, but
I think I'd also back that up. And so expectations from the go-to-market strategy. So if you do an event, you don't expect 10 briefs from the back of it. It's, as Adam said, it's an 18-month process, but you've got to learn what's the nurturing program for that after that event, and how do you then get that sort of those ideal customers into your ongoing regular marketing campaign? Because I think a lot of what agencies aren't doing at the moment is building their brand awareness, and if that's not working, your sales is always going to struggle. I think this also links in, Alex. I'm going to thank you, Susie. I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. I think some of the examples you're using there are quite heavily like marketing based. And I think in my mind, a go-to-market strategist would be filling those gaps. So identifying, okay, what it is, what do we go to market with in terms of our services and propositions? What do they look like? So we're not going after the earth, but actually we are kind of focusing in on what we do best, or what the market is really asking for, and kind of making sure that they are making those determinations.
So that, I mean, just on that point though, that's really, really interesting you say that, and it kind of underpins everything we've talked about today, because I was recently talking to an agency who asked me for a new business strategy, and we were talking, and as we're talking, and what I'd say back to you is that you're not asking for a new business strategy, you're asking for a business strategy. And that's what I think all people like me have to ask at the beginning. We think we're solving a sale. What you've just talked about there, when you're getting into products and services and core offerings of a business, I don't see that as a go-to-market strategy. I saw the go-to-market strategy as the sales and marketing strategy of how you take that product, services, and positioning to market. If you're asking us to define what products and services your business should sell, that is a different conversation that you might be better suited talking to like a non-exec about, or or certainly looking at the SLT and the business itself. There's definitely a bit in between there where I'm sure guys like Guy and me and maybe Russell could help and support. But I do think there's a big distinction there where when you talk to people, are you talking about products and services and what your core offering is, or are you talking about how you take that to market? Because most people won't be able to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it really hit the nail on the head there. Thank you.
It's when I worked at British Gas, we had a product team that was building all the products, all the what does smart meters can do, etc. And then our role was to actually how do we take that to market? What are the unique selling points of that product that's going to make a customer buy it? And I think this ties in a bit with Alex as well. Alex, do you want to? Thank you, Susie. Alex, do you want to join in as well?
I think he can't. He's on a train, he's saying.
No, Charlie.
So he. Might have to
Sorry,
read it out.
Alex was asking basically, maybe the esteemed panel can just give us an illustration about the best way to approach a potential new business client, assuming what the commercial strategy has been set, what channels and how should we approach it to get that foot in the door?
Yeah. So ICP's been defined. So I think I've got an idea of who Alex's ICP is. So he finds marketing director at challenger brand that he wants to work with. I would connect with them on LinkedIn. I would then have some content going out that solves some of their problems. But I would also look wider as who that business is already working with. And you can do a really simple Google search. So if it's a retailer, they're going to be using some sort of e-com platform. So you could do retailer name, and if they're on Shopify, for example, Shopify case study. What will fly up, because every agency tags their case studies, are which agency that business is working with. And instantly, if you don't do Shopify builds, you have a strategic partner. So you have another route into that business that isn't direct. I would also have a look at some of the other stakeholders within that prospect's team, and I would see who in your business, be yourself, the founder, the client services director, and your wider network is already connected with that marketing director or somebody else, the e-com manager or somebody else within their business. You have then started to form a little network science piece. So you could, Alex, go direct to them and start building that relationship. Then you could also start to build relationships with the Shopify agency they're working with, the affiliate agency they're working with, and you can search for all of these people really simply of who's working with that business already, the other suppliers of that retailer, and start to build relationships with them. And that's twofold. One, to get into that prospect, but secondly, because they will be working with a lot of other businesses that you also want to work with. So you start to build up this partnership model. And then with the network science piece, it would be very simple to ask, say, if I saw Paddy, you were connected to somebody that I wanted to get in touch with, I could simply give you a WhatsApp and say, how well do you know said name? Now, they might have been your best man at your wedding, or you might, typical LinkedIn, not know them at all. If they were best man at your wedding, you can ask, how would you advise I get in touch with them? If we've got a good enough relationship, you would turn around and say, I'll do that for you. And there's your in. Really simple, no cold needed at all. But you're building up, you're just looking at things a little bit differently and almost, in my opinion, slightly more consultatively. So that's how, there's a number of different ways that you could get in touch with them. They might regularly post on LinkedIn. I don't love commenting on everybody's stuff, to be honest, but they might be posting about an event that they're going to. Make sure you're at that event, because again, there should be ROI from that event because you start to build that relationship, but also there should be other people who are in your target audience that you can meet and network with. And again, if you can get some sort of list of that event, you can start messaging people, but you could direct message them, or you can go indirectly through partners or indirectly through a network that you or somebody else in the business has got.
Adam, do you want to add anything as well? Thanks, Guy.
Yeah, I think they're all really good tips and advice, and I think I think sometimes when people like Guy or people who've had experiences doing, there's so many sort of different tactics, tricks, the things that you can use, and these are all things you pick up, and they're great. I think just stepping slightly back from it in terms of mindset, I think there's sometimes, I feel like sometimes agency owners are searching for like the golden bullet and the perfect way of doing something that's going to work every time. And unfortunately, it ain't going to happen. And I think what you need to understand is new business is a bit like a flywheel. People come in and out at all different ways, shapes, times, all that kind of stuff. And you can never know that or predict that, and it's going to change. All you can do is keep that flywheel spinning, right? And making sure that you are doing the things consistently, and then you're sort of measuring and tweaking things as you go. So I do think it's hard to know what's going to be effective all the time. That's why you have to think long term. But what you do for one won't work for another. But I think the other part you asked about was research recommended, and I think what Guy was talking to there is like basically using insights and research as a really smart approach. You've obviously with any outreach you can do quality or quantity, right? Quality is going into much more of like an account-based marketing, tailored approach. We're going to handpick 20 people. We're going to dive deep into those businesses, and we're going to give them something really tailored as to how we can add value. The broader approach is, no, I'm going to reach like 1,000 companies. I'm going to send them something that's loosely, relevant to them and try and get them in. The problem is if neither of those are right or wrong, right? But you need a mixture of the both, because if you go really targeted to 20 businesses and no one responds, you're screwed, right? And then you need to go out to the volume game. So I'd always think about having a mixture of those things, whereby you're doing broad enough outreach that is semi-tailored, but then going deep into a select group of businesses where you are researching them. And that's what people want to see more than most, is like, how can you actually help that business? We all know that you want to sell to that company and you want to get something in the door, but why does that business need you? And be really clear about that, what you can actually help them. And if you get that across, that will resonate, and that will get them involved. But you can only do that through a bit of research and looking under the skin of the business and that individual. LinkedIn activities on an individual, I think, is a really big giveaway of what someone is interested in. So they're not always active, but every individual, you can look at everything they've posted, commented on, or done on LinkedIn, everybody. And that will give you so much insight into what that person is engaging with and what's happening in their life. And so I think we use that simple tool, and Googling things, as well, very simple Google News, to understand what state a business is in. And then it's just about putting yourself in their shoes and thinking, what are they actually struggling with right now? What's going on in that person's head, and how can I help them? So
I've got one question, Marcus, if you want to jump in, and then I just want to there is someone in the panel, in the audience I just want to bring in as well, she's another sort of recruitment partner as well within Pimento. Marcus, do you want to jump on just to ask a question?
Yeah, hi guys. Very insightful comments there. As a business agency owner of nearly 20 years, I've employed new biz and experienced salespeople alike in various roles over the time. Like you, I've experienced a demotivation coming in. It's normally at about 6 months after the initial surge of new business has come along, a few wins here and there, and then things start to tail off. Aside from commission and lots of sort of hand-holding and all of that stuff, have you got any practical tips for keeping these guys motivated? I mean, there's share incentive programs and all of that sort of thing, but there's a limit to how long you can keep a lot of people on the books if they're not bringing the business in.
I'm happy to jump in.
Go on, Adam. You jump, and then
I think there are. If you're looking at ways to incentivize smaller activities rather than like the whole win and the whole thing, then I think you can look at sort of smaller KPIs in terms of number of conversations had, meetings booked, people added to a CRM. Engagement stats that show that we are moving in the right direction. And I would advise that you track those anyway. Because that's going to give you an indication as to whether your sales and marketing activity at the top of funnel is actually working. So you can incentivize on some of those things if done in the right way. I think the harder part, and being real with you, is the motivation of that individual new business person. And I think if I was really honest and looked at new business people, I think there's a bunch of new business people that don't want to be new business people. Their dream is actually always to leave sales and become client services, creative or strategic. Now, they won't tell you that, obviously, because they're going for the role of new business person. But there's because I was that for about 7 years of my career, there's an outline where I didn't think I was going to be in sales forever. I thought, you know what, I'll make the jump. And I think somewhere along the line, you need to sort of determine if it's one of those, if it's a jumper person, and maybe if they are good enough, you might let them jump and actually go, you know what, there's often a massive skill gap between someone who understands sales and then can move them into client services, and then you get into client development, upselling and cross-selling within an agency. So there are progressive routes for salespeople if they don't want to stay in that role. And often, even if they do want to be in sales, they don't want to be doing cold outreach forever. So, you have these different, so you have to sort of think they're doing that for a certain element of time, but you need to look at their career progression and understand where it's going to take them. And it might be that they need to have a more commercial sort of role in the business and looking at profitability, looking at empowering them more to think more commercially about the entire company rather than being siloed into a lead generation, like Guy was talking about, an SDR function, which is where often people are sort of pigeonholed. But, often client services teams struggle with a growth mindset and commerciality. So maybe they could work with them and impart their knowledge. And maybe there's sort of broader things about new products you're taking to market or new services and things like that they could help with. So I think it's about trying to understand what motivates that individual person and how you can fit a role around them. And if you can't, then it's probably looking at, maybe they're just not the right person for the company. And a lot of salespeople will move on within 2 years because they want to earn more money and they want to sort of earn more commission elsewhere and things like that, or they get bored of a sale. You can't solve all of those problems. I just think your job is to determine where that person's at and what they want out of their career.
100%. That's exactly what I would have said.
Thank you, Adam. I'm just going to bring in Sarah White, who is another partner. Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
Hi there. Good, thanks.
If you've got anything else you want to add into this sort of conversation before I
Yeah, so I mean, we recruit in quite a different space to Russell. So we recruit more of your creatives, your developers, so your more techie people, basically. But I recruit a lot of salespeople myself, and I've interviewed a lot of recruiters and trained a lot of recruiters, and a lot of things hit home. So Adam was talking about why they would want to listen to you, why they would want to engage with you. So I do frequently say, put yourself in the eyes and the ears of the recipient. When you start that call, why are they going to want to remain on the phone to you? When you're sending that LinkedIn message or that email, what in there is going to make them want to reply, what's going to connect with them? So eyes and ears of the recipient. And with Guy saying about work your network, ask for introductions, it's association through credibility through association. And it's far easier to get a foot in the door with somebody that can give you an introduction. So yeah, interesting point for me. So we do recruit a little bit in client services, and the founders are trying to get the client services people to try and land and expand, so to build out those accounts, as Russell mentioned earlier. Some of them have started to ask me, okay, at what point, if we bring a new biz person in, at what point then is it passed to the account development team? And I have the same question from some of my team where they say, okay, so I'm a 360 recruiter, I bring on the client wants 30 people. At what point is it still classed as new business, and at what point does it go to the account development team?
I can the experience I have with one of the agencies I'm working with is the business person, new salesperson is building the relationship, but they're also introducing the team as the relationship's building and as you're going into the pitch process. It's the pitch team that turns up is the one that's going to be working on the account, so they can take on that relationship straight after and sort of talk and build the relationship through that process. Realistically, I don't think the commercial person has much of a role to play apart from just having regular catch-ups with that client to see how things are going, post the pitch and post the commercial, post the win.
Yeah, I agree, and I would encourage agency owners to incentivize their client services team with commission to grow that account. And there was a line in the sand where the comms for the new biz stuff happens for the win, and then it's really simple from there, I think.
It can sometimes depend on the qualities of the new business person and how much they're able to take that lead through and articulate the offering. Some people, if they're quite junior and they haven't got a full grasp of the full agency, then they might bring them in earlier. But normally, as early as possible, really, you want to bring in the lead, qualify as much as possible. And once it's qualified and internally you can decide what that is, you should bring in client services straight away, because that's the relationship that needs to happen. And ultimately, that new business person almost becomes a matchmaker. You kind of go, right, here, prospect, meet the team that you could eventually work with. And I'm going to sit in the background now and make sure everything runs smoothly and everything's happy. And that's kind of the role that the new business person plays, because their focus should then be on what's coming down the line next.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to have to stop this conversation now because we have overrun by a couple of minutes. So apologies to everyone. Russell, Adam, Guy, and Sarah actually at the end. Thank you so much for what was really an informative, interesting session. I think there was a lot that we covered. There's a lot that we can still cover. We haven't touched on commission or anything like that really, but it is all we have time for. So I want to thank everyone for a fantastic session. We are going to be posting our video on YouTube page probably tomorrow. And if you want to get in touch with any of the panelists, please let me know and I can make introductions. And then we've got a couple of house notes about upcoming events. The next last 6 p.m. club of the year is on Tuesday, 26th of November, and it's been in London and it's been hosted by Crush. It is a Tuesday, not a Thursday. It's great events for networking and sort of meetings of like-minded people where you can have really interesting conversations and opportunities to look at building partnerships. We have our 5 p.m. club on Thursday, the 12th of December. These are online, and this is a sort of what's going on in the industry, catch up, and sort of again networking side of things. And then we have our Club 30. It's happening on the 21st of November, which is for sort of people under 30, and it's really sort of getting together, building relationships at a more junior level under 30 years of age. But thank you, everyone. It's been a really great session, so thank you all for your time. And see you later. And hopefully, I don't see you have a good Christmas. I can't say.
Thank you.